3 costly mistakes I wish I didn't make earlier that would have saved me time in the learning process if I didn't make them, but also I learned from them, so you can learn from my mistakes too and advance faster. The first one is to clarify the main frame or the main inference the person is operating from. The inference is shown in the Sleight of Mouth model as those 2 squares in the middle, which is basically the most important belief the person will try to impose on you, whether you like it or not. If you are in a kind of confrontation, or if you are with a client who doesn't seem to be able to let go of a negative assumption about himself, then there is something they try to impose as a frame for this conversation. I am not tall enough, which means I won't be hired for the right kind of jobs. Stuff like that, whatever they attribute their lack of possibilities to, there is always a specific cause they attach to the negative result they keep getting in their lives. And if it is a confrontation, the person may be wounded and trying to protect something. In that case, they may see you as a threat, and in their frame, in their inference, we will see you talking about this means you don't like me, for example. If you're not clear about what exactly are they trying to communicate, you may just debate in the wind. You may just keep arguing against a wall. It is about clarifying which belief do they operate from before attempting any sort of reframe. In my case, I was always trying to jump into reframing without really clarifying what does that person mean, what do they try to communicate, what their body language sometimes is communicating that they don't want to say, stuff like that. And if you have trouble with that, because many people think it is going too fast, it sounds too fast, they don't have time to elaborate, clarify what do they mean by this, what is the implied belief behind that sentence. If it is going too fast for you, or if you don't have the mental acuity yet to figure out what's happening in any conversation, you can start by digging into your own thought process, which is simpler because with your own head, you have time to clarify what you think. More specifically, it is about what is your outcome with this conversation. If you have trouble clarifying where does that person wants to lead me, then can you initially elaborate where are you trying to lead that person? And if your answer is anything starting by I want to make them understand, you are already putting yourself in a defense position, in a battle position by trying to impose something even before they start enumerating their reasons for why they don't believe in what you talk about. If you start from a presupposition you will impose something as a basic reciprocation mechanism, people will reciprocate and fight back against you. So it is, if you haven't clarified your own outcome with that conversation, it may be led into a wall, and when you clarify your outcome, it needs to be something other than I will prove them wrong, I will show them they're wrong, I will make them understand. If it is anything about them, then it is first about helping, healing, releasing, detaching, relaxing maybe, whatever more positive term you have, to affect their state in the current moment. From there, if you have anything you want to reframe or change as an assumption, then yes, once they are at least in a positive state or in a more calm state than the one they came into the conversation with. The second big mistake was to always kind of escalate out of ego, I do admit, always escalate on the bully's behavior if somebody was trying to talk higher or to be more dominant or whatever, to try to be even higher, which is just leading into, for some people, into a physical fight. Luckily not for me, but that is just leading into more confrontation. What I realized over the years was that a bully's behavior is simply coming from somebody who is hurt inside, from somebody who is wounded or who is afraid of appearing vulnerable, and therefore they try to be more tough or be more aggressive to hide, because anger is temporarily providing some sense of control. And when people sense they are going to lose control, they may rely to anger to try to keep in control of the situation and of you in front of them by scaring you. I have a friend who in the past joined the military, and they taught them obviously combat techniques, hand-to-hand combat, stuff like that. And one day in a nightclub, there was a big guy who was trying to like pull a girl away from the group of people they were into, and my friend came in front of him and said, well, she's staying here because she's with us. Please, can you respect that? And the guy was starting to like puff the chest and like appear like stronger. And my friend said, do you want to fight me? But without any aggressive look, like just why do you put your shoulders like this? I only have a conversation with you. Why do you put yourself in such an aggressive state? And the guy said, well, I don't want to fight. I'm not here to fight. And my friend said, well, look at your behavior. You're just like this, as if you wanted to punch me in the face. Why? I have only been talking to you. So the way to decrease aggressiveness is by putting yourself in the vulnerable position, by letting it appear as if you were the victim here, like, dude, you're going to punch me, I don't have any weapons, I cannot defend myself and you want to punch me. Why? By doing that, you will just call out what the person is doing and make them decrease. Or at the very least, if it is too dangerous and you can't put yourself in the vulnerable position because there might be a real danger in that situation, then you can simply call out, like he did, calling out what the person is physically doing. Like, dude, you are just being aggressive right now. Because I see you have your head like this, you have your shoulders like this. Why? At the very least, it will bring them back into consciousness, because when people get triggered, it is because their emotions take the best of them. Calling out to something like to a body language behavior will call back their cognitive brain, their neocortex, will make them think again, and it is into thinking that we can de-escalate violence. Into emotional rage, there is just nothing we can de-escalate, it is just who is the strongest wins. Which you may play that game too if you like it. I just prefer to stay away from that as much as possible. If you are the kind of person who loves fighting in nightclubs, please be my guest, do so. I enjoy watching sometimes actually. Or one time I had a very strong argument with a person close to me years ago, and that person was the kind where if you just try to battle argument against argument, there's just no way to win against that person. I mean, he may not win, but he will just never let it go. What I did was to physically sit down. He was standing up and I was taller, so it was maybe intimidating for him unconsciously. So I sit down on a chair and I let him have the edge over me physically. That's just what came to me intuitively, but I noticed as soon as I put myself down in front of him, he started to decrease the level of anger. And there we could have a conversation. But somebody who is just in aggressive mode, there's not really any clever statement you can make anyway, because they are too high on the emotional rage and not enough into cognitive logic that can make them de-escalate and have a polite conversation. And the last one, number 3, is to therefore avoid labeling people's behaviors when there is a conflict. Labeling like, oh, you are being sarcastic right now, which might come down to what is known as the redefine pattern. Redefining is fine when there is enough rapport between you and the person, but with somebody who is kind of on the defensive already, never label what they do with another term than the ones they have been using. So if you notice the person is being sarcastic or is trying to act tough because they have a wounded ego, maybe this is what you observe as an outsider, but never call that out if they are already in a defensive position or kind of upset. Then never ever reinterpret or interpret or redefine any of the things they said and any of the things they did. Only use the exact words, and by exact words I mean exact words they used. Because that way you don't trigger anything more. When somebody is already kind of on a defensive or trying to prove you wrong because they try to put it back on, yeah, and what about you, and what about this? In that case, back in the day, I was kind of trying to label, oh, you are being right now this and that, you are doing this, saying this. And that is something you can do when people are calm. When they are aggressive, never go there. It is just going to escalate into more conflict and more conflict. Not really a good idea anyway. So those were my main mistakes with that field, the sleight of mouth. I learned down the road to always adapt to the person in front of me instead of overreacting to whichever emotional state the people around me were into. And if you want to develop your skills with that, you have a method down below with the sleight of mouth patterns by category, knowing which one to use at which moment, why this one may be more important than that one, and a method to learn and memorize and practice with them. It is down below in the description. Thank you for listening and see you in the next video.